Happy Sunday, y'all. I talk a lot about spiritual births on this page, and it is pretty much a foundation of everything that I teach because I don't believe that you can have this very supernatural birth experience without being connected to God and having that as a part of your preparation process in the journey of preparing for birth. So we're going to talk about and share a spiritual birth story. And y'all, this is a very, very, very fun birth story because just to give you a little bit of what we're going to talk about. We always talk about wanting to stay at home as long as possible because, yes, why would we want to be in any birthing environment, especially the hospital, longer than we need to be? And there's no knock on being in hospital or out of hospital, but of course, your place of peace is your home. So to be there longer and labor there longer and be confident to labor there as long as possible is the best option. And this mama did that, so much so that she was at the hospital for this much time before she had a baby. And also, this is going to be helpful for anybody who has fibroids because that's also a big topic that people get afraid of the pain, especially if you've had fibroids and you know that there can be pain associated with fibroids without being pregnant. So obviously there can be some fear around having fibroids and what that means for your pregnancy and for your labor. So that's a little bit of a preview of what we're going to talk about, but I'm going to bring this family that I love dearly their journey. So they're going to join us in just a second. Here we go.
Hey, doing fine. How are you doing?
How are y'all?
I know.
I'm good. I miss seeing y'all's faces. Also, so one of the things that I said this a few times, but a lot of the families that I work with end up becoming my friends. We all become friends and we end up doing life together. And this lovely family is one that we continue to stay connected after the birth and do Bible studies together and things like that. And so anyways, I say all that to say, this is more than just one day of your life. This is a journey, and it's important to have people who you connect with and who you trust on this journey with you, who believe the same things that you believe. And I'm just so grateful that we got a chance to work together in this capacity and that we're still doing things in life together and staying connected. So with all that being said, tell everybody who you are and how long ago you had a baby and whatever else you want to share.
Okay. could not have done it without you, not to the capacity that we were able to. And so we appreciate you so much. Yes. I know Mike calls you Micah's, what do you call it? Her fairy godmother. Our fairy godmother.
That's my baby girl.
So yes, I'm Taisha Carson, and this is my husband,
Michael
Carson. And we had our baby. I gave birth a little over a year now, April 11th of 2022. So our baby just had her first birthday last month, or that was June already, 2 months ago almost. And yeah, I have a nearly 14-month-old. So yes, we are in this thing, and so yes.
For real.
Yes.
14 months. How at first, I know we're talking about the birth, but how was the first year?
It's been a wild ride, but it's been such a beautiful one to just see her. We were just talking about it the other day, how she's coming to her own personality. She's starting to dance and sing and say little words here and there, and so it has definitely been a blessing. Nonetheless, she is our little gift from the Lord, and we love her so much.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So let's start from the beginning. And I know for those of you who have been on here before and have listened to any of these birth stories, I'm not just going to jump into the story because you're not going to benefit from anybody's birth story if you don't know how they got there. So we have to start from the beginning and build up to what actually, because you can be really inspired and you will be inspired by all these stories, but to be able to implement any of the things that you learn about from these stories, you got to know how they did it and how they got there. So that's why we're starting from the beginning and not just jumping into the story. But from the beginning, what even made y'all decide, okay, I think I want to have a doula. I think I want to have a natural birth, because you had fibroids. And that was something that we talked about from the very beginning. So like knowing that and still maybe considering a natural birth, like how did you guys come to these decisions early on of the things that you wanted
I
for
would
your
say
birth?
from the very beginning, once I found out that I was pregnant, it was like I knew that I wanted a doula. Childbirth has always been something I've been a little bit fearful of, just because of the disproportionate amount of Black women who don't make it through childbirth in the U.S. And so it was always something I knew I needed someone to help me advocate for myself and to advocate for me. I also knew very specifically that I wanted a Black woman who was a woman of God, who was a believer. And so I just started like reaching out to people, and Courtney Miller, she told me about you. She just would just talk about you and just in such a in such a way that I was like, I need to reach out to this woman. I need to know more about her. And so when we reached out, it was like, oh yes, this is who I want to, to help us through this. But it was definitely something that I knew I needed for myself in order to feel more comfortable with it. Doctors had always told me, oh, because of the size of your fibroids, I don't know how it's going to be, easy for you to get pregnant. You might have to do, might have to get them removed and all these other things. But I also knew that I didn't want to get them removed, just because I was afraid of scar tissue. I was afraid of, them just making a mistake, and so I was like, no, the Lord's going to do it with these fibroids. And so, we actually got pregnant very quickly after our wedding. We were only married for about 3 months before I got pregnant, and it caught me by surprise just because of what I was told all that time. That was going to be difficult. But yeah, that's kind of how I decided to get a doula, or the reason why.
And Mike, what were you at in this journey? Because I think a lot of partners are like, I can do that. We don't need to hire no doula. I got you. Like, you don't trust me? And, this is obviously your first time too in this journey. So from the partner's perspective, like, what made you want to kind of go along with what Tyshell was desiring
honestly,
for
I was
her
very
birth?
appreciative that we would have help. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't, I would have known the things that you shared. And so, like, you teaching me how to advocate for her, going through the process, how to support her, I wouldn't say I was nervous yet, but I had no idea what I was doing. And so, you and your husband, like, helped me tremendously through this process. And so I'm forever grateful. Absolutely. Absolutely.
No. I'm so happy to hear that. I'm so good. Because I mean, it's one of those things. I think that I wish that like somebody like Courtney would have, like I would have known somebody like Courtney my first time around. Because we thought we knew, and we didn't know a thing. And obviously, I trust my husband, but the advocacy piece is just very different. It's very different. So to see Courtney and Patrick do this like flawlessly really was like, okay, these people can do this when they have the skill set, and we could have done it the first time had we known what we were supposed to be doing. So y'all mentioned faith a lot in this journey. So how did your faith like play a role in the mental and spiritual preference? It's okay. It's okay.
Let this thing go.
Don't even worry about it. This is a parenting page. Don't even worry about it. We're gonna work through it. Okay. You just tell me if you guys need to pause for a second. But how did you use your faith to become, or I mean, maybe not use your faith, but like, how did your faith play a role in becoming mentally and spiritually prepared?
It was the most important thing. It is what kept me grounded. It's what kept me just calm most times. Because of my fibroids, fibroids, there were a lot of times where I had to end up going to the emergency room because of pain and things like that. And, the doctors, they said all different types of things. Like, oh, because of your fibroids, your uterus is not going to contract, strong enough to deliver your baby. Your not going to be able to, you know, you're going to have to be induced because your placenta is going to give out because of your fibroids, and all these different things that they were telling me about what my body was going to do. And it was one time, you know, my baby, she was probably going to be premature because they wanted me to get this shot and do all these different things. And it was like, no, like me and my husband were going to pray about it and we'll get back to you. It was always, we're going to pray about it and we'll get back to you. We'll pray about it and we'll get back to you. And every single time the Lord, he moved, you know, and our story could have been completely different if it weren't for prayer, if it weren't for us leaning on him, you know, in every decision that we made. And we did it together and we did it with Christ. And so like, it was everything. I know that throughout my pregnancy, I listened to, I forget the name of it. It's a book though, that I was listening to, an audio book about Supernatural Childbirth. I listened to that, listened to the prayers. And also there's like a playlist on Spotify that I was listening to where it was just prayers in constant like rotation. Let's make the declarations over yourself, over your baby, from things to like their ears and, you know, just like all the things that matter, but also even their personalities, you know what I'm saying? And so people always say, oh, your baby's so calm. Your baby's so chill. It's like, because I prayed for that. And of course, she's still,
listen,
you know, she's going to be who she's still a baby.
You gotta
so she has her moments. But for the most part, I be telling people like, no, like, this is answered prayer. Okay. So, yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about that for a second, because people obviously, like, everybody has their own opinions. And of course, like, not everything that we pray for, that might not be God's plan for us, like what we pray for, right? So I think there's a piece there that also needs to be taken into consideration of, just because you pray, it doesn't mean that like God is going to answer that prayer right now. It could be later, outside of this particular timeline. But what advice would y'all give somebody who is a believer but has a lot of fear about birth, to the point where like everybody else's voice and everything that I see on social media is louder than, because I mean, I've worked with people who be like, I'm praying. And I know this work well enough to, I'm like, yes, you're praying, but you're not connected. Like, I can see you and you're not connected in your prayer right now. You're going through the motions of prayer, which is great. But I need you to go deeper with God right now. So like, what would you say to somebody who has a lot of fear about birth, either because of what they've experienced before, what they've seen, what doctors are telling them, and or like, just, I don't know, maybe their pain tolerance or whatever it could be? What would you tell somebody who is afraid of that but is a believer? Like, how do you trust God and sit and pray? Because I remember the time that you went to the emergency room for your fibroid pain, or maybe they told you, that was what it was, they told you to go to the emergency room for your fibroid pain. And I'm like, okay, well, you guys can go if that's where you feel comfortable and if that's the decision that you want to do, but like, make sure we're going into this experience, like, or into this emergency room situation calm. We don't want to go in frantic, overwhelmed, afraid. So pray about it. And that was what y'all did. And then I was like, okay, what are we gonna do? Like, we're gonna wait here and see how we feel until tomorrow. I was like, okay, cool, like that's what we're gonna do. Great. So that's just kind of an example of like you leaning really strongly on your faith and on God's word. So the original question is like, what would you tell somebody in that situation who is really afraid and doesn't know how to go deeper in their prayer life for these kinds of situations?
I would say that one thing that my husband will always like remind me of is like we can't be fearful and have faith at the same time. Like, we just can't. Like, that's not something that, it's not even a thing, right? It's like, it's faith over fear at all times. And so that's another thing that I really appreciated was that we did it together, you know what I'm saying? And so really leaning on God, but also leaning on one another. Like, my mom would tell us both all the time and say like, I'm so proud of you guys. Like, you guys did all of this together. Like, you guys did all of this together. I'm so proud of you guys, because like, it really was like, you know, me and him, and then you and the Lord, you know what I'm saying? That's literally, that was our team, you know? And so like, I would definitely say you can't do both. You can't be fearful and have faith at the same time. And you have to know that, like, one of the things I kept like really saying to myself and praying while even in labor is like, especially when it was like the pain kind of got intense, was like, okay, like pain is nailed to the cross. Like all of this is nailed to, fear is nailed to the cross. Like all of it is nailed to the cross. Like it's covered by his blood. Like, you know, no matter, it doesn't matter. Like this is all temporary. Like it was always constantly like anything, any fear, any anxiety, any doubt, it's all nailed to the cross. And so like that was definitely something that's something I would remind the person of. It's like, it's nailed to the cross.
That's so good. That's so good. And then Mike, what about for you from the partner's lens of like, I'm watching my wife go through this thing and I'm hearing what the doctors are saying about this thing. Like, how do you stay calm in that and stay, you know, grounded in your faith as the partner? Because I've seen the opposite, where partners are like, okay, babe, but that's what they're saying, and like this is our baby and we need to be smart about this. Like, how do you encourage the partners to stay calm and grounded throughout that?
Yeah, for me in those moments, you know, I think I stayed in a certain frame of mind because of what I believe I heard from God, and that what I heard was that Michael was going to be fine, and I still say that to this day. It'd be all types of stuff happening around the house, and Ty would be like, and I'd be like, he's going to be fine, you know. And you know,
like, how can you be so calm right now?
Right. I'm like, she's going to be fine, and so it was always that for me. I'm like I trust what God said, you know, and you know, not that my wife didn't, but like I said, she's going through the emotional roller coaster as well as the physical. And so just being her backbone and making sure, you know, that she knows she can lean on me in times of need. And it wasn't a thing where it's like we had conversations about those moments where it's like, you know, encouraging her, but then you want to make sure you're not like, you know, I'm forcing on her, like, man, she gonna be fine. Like, get yourself together. It's not like that. It's just in those moments where it's not, you know, we don't know what else to do. You know, it's like, all right, look, like we got to go back to the source, you know, and we got to continue to faith, keep the faith. And it always worked for us, you know, whenever we got to that moment where it's like, man, they saying some wild stuff, you know, it's like, all right, let's take a moment, you know what I'm saying, and talk to God about it. And it was always something where he intervened in interesting ways. Like one time we just fell asleep and forgot to go and call them. And it, you know what I'm saying? It was just, we were praying and we just dozed off, you know? And
peace, the Lord.
Just the peace, that supernatural peace,
Listen,
exactly.
He said rest.
And so, you know, that was the beauty in that, that we can rest in the Father. And that, you know, he showed up so many different ways. And so I would say as the man, you know what I'm saying, just continue to intercede for your wife. Like she's going to go through different things that you may not understand, but just continue to intercede. And then, you know, when you have those moments where you both are up against the wall, hold hands and go to God, you know. So
yeah, I love that. And hopefully, because somebody mentioned or like asked a question about how to handle doubt and faith and prayer, and I hope that answered how, you know, I hope both of their responses answered that question for you, because it is very easy. I think the comment was sometimes doubt can come even when he prays, and how Satan tries to put pictures in their minds about all these things. And I think that that's very normal. I think it's very much like a part of the journey of like which one are you going to lean on? Like, which direction are you going to allow your mind and your heart to rest in? And is it the hard, scary things, or is it the things that he's telling you? And I also want to like make this clear. Obviously, this is not a sermon here, but also like understand that just because some of the stories that you hear, like the outcome was what they wanted it to be, that might not always be the direction that God is leading you in. It might be like God's like, no, you need to go to the emergency room, or like you need to move forward with this thing. And it may be completely against your plan, and that's okay. That does not mean that it's ruined. It doesn't mean like it's not going to have a good outcome or experience or whatever. But all that to say, this is a great example. So then let's fast forward to getting close to the big day, and we're ready to have this baby, and the big day comes. So how did you know that you were in labor? What how did you know you were in labor, and then what was going on for you when you were like, oh yeah,
so
this is the real thing?
because of the fibroids, I had a lot of Braxton Hicks, those, you know, those false contractions, right, throughout my pregnancy. And so there were, especially getting close, there were a lot of times like, oh, is this it? Is this it? You know, but it wasn't. But on the morning, like I said, Michael was born on April 11th. So that was Sunday morning. April 10th was Palm Sunday. And so I wanted to go to church and see the kids, you know, do their Palm Sunday performance. And so it's like 7:50 in the morning. I wake up, and me and Mike are, you know, just hanging out in the bed, just talking. And it's like, oh, I'll be right back. I have to go to the restroom. When I stood up, I just like felt this gush. And I'm like, uh-oh. And he was like, what? And I was like, I don't know. Hold on one second. And so I went to the restroom. And I was like, babe, I think my water broke. And then, like, you know, after using the restroom, I saw the bloody show. But I would say, going back a little bit, maybe like a few weeks before that, though, I lost my mucus plug. And so, because I didn't have it for a while. And so, because of dehydration, I was actually dilated maybe like 2 centimeters for like a month. And so ended up seeing that, and then immediately after using the restroom, I got back in the bed and I just texted you. I was like, Chanel, I seen the bloody show. I think my water broke. And then you're like, okay, cool. Just like, you know, put on a pad and like, you know, just monitor, you know, the fluid. And I'm like, okay. And I was like, is it still okay if I go to church? And he was like, yeah, you can go to church and, you know, make sure you guys get your last date in, as, you know, a childless married couple. And I'm like, okay. And so we ended up, you know, getting ready for the day, went to church. At church, had a couple of contractions, nothing too big, nothing, you know, to write home about or anything like that. But after church, we ended up, you know, getting some last minute things together. We got our hospital bag in the car, you know, make sure everything was fine. And then what did we do after that? We went to the movies. Yeah, we went to the movies.
What did we watch?
We watched Sonic the Hedgehog Part 2. Yes.
What a day.
So we went and saw Sonic, because nothing else really good was out. And so we went to go see them.
Now hold on, were you
Throughout
having
the whole day, I was
contractions
having like
at this
small
point?
contractions. I even remember when we were at church.
Okay.
It was my mother-in-law and my sister, and we were talking, and you know, we were just talking, and I was like, "Ooh, hold on one second, okay." And I had a lot of those moments where I was like, "Okay, hold on one second.
Yeah.
Okay, cool." And I was like, "Oh, it's just a little contraction, right?" And so, just a little thing,
Just a little bit.
nothing too big.
Nothing big.
And so, yeah, after that. She doesn't want me to touch. Right, she didn't want me to touch her.
Like, girl, that's not what I was doing.
Okay, and so yes, at the movies, we're sitting there, and again, just like a little tightness comes here and there, and then I had to end up using the restroom. And when I went to the restroom is when I had like one of the more stronger ones during the movie time. But yes, throughout this entire day, I'm having like little contractions here and there. After the movies, we went and got some food. We went and got some Sweet Green. I love their salads. And then I wanted some frozen yogurt. So we went to get some frozen yogurt, and I was like, okay, this is my last dessert before Micah comes. And so while he stayed in the car. He parked in front. He stayed in the car. He was on the phone having a business call. So I went inside and I got my yogurt. And literally, right when I'm like about to hand the cashier my debit card, I had another one. I was like, ooh, and this was like a strong one. She's like, oh my gosh, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm just having a contraction. She's like, oh my gosh. She's like, do you need help? Are you by yourself? I was like, my husband's right there. She was like, oh my gosh. Okay. I was like, it's okay. Don't worry. Okay. Whew. Okay. So over here. And I ended up getting, and I'm getting my frozen yogurt and leaving. And the whole time I'm walking out, I look back at her. She's like, just staring at me like, is she okay? Just watching you go back to the car like, this lady's
what
inside.
Why is she here?
And so we go home. At this point, it's like 7:30. So water broke around 7:50 in the morning. It's about 8 o'clock on our way home. And so as we're driving home, I said to him, okay, I think we should probably get ready for whatever comes next. So let's go home, shower, and I guess wait. Because one of the things that I remember you saying is like, just because you know, the water has broken doesn't mean you have to go straight to the hospital, you know. And so we just kind of waited it out until we felt like it was time. And so got home around 8:30. I hopped in the shower, and that's when things started kind of like going. After using the restroom, I got in the shower, things started picking up. I'm like, ooh, these are getting stronger, a little bit more intense, a little closer together. I'm like, okay, should we start like counting these? And so we went to YouTube to figure out how to how to count them, and we ended up actually doing it incorrectly. And so I called my mom and just let her know what was going on. She's like, I'm going to the hospital right now. I was like, well, Mom, we're not there. You don't have to go yet. Well, I'm going to go up there and I'm going to sit up there until y'all come. I'm like, okay. So
Oh my
it's like
gosh.
9 o'clock. And I was like, okay, Mom, we're not going to be there, but you know, if you want to, that's fine. And so around like 9:15 is when it was like, now we're on the floor. We're doing rolling on the ball. He's holding me up. I'm breathing, and like I'm in active labor at this point, where we're just trying to get the baby down. And so I was exhausted by like, and so at this time going back and forth to the bathroom, drinking water, back and forth to the bathroom, trying to stay hydrated. Yeah, it just felt like a long time, but it wasn't that long. It wasn't that long at all. It was not that long.
It was not long.
But it just felt like that. And so by the time, maybe around like midnight, I was pretty much exhausted. And then and this whole time we're in communication with you via text. And I think around like midnight is when Mike actually called you. And you were telling me to do this exercise like on my side or something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember not being able to do it on both sides. I can only do it on one side, and so that's the side I stuck with. And I ended up being able to fall asleep in the bed in between my contractions. And I was like, how do you know how that happened? But it worked.
This is proof, y'all, because I have so many comments of angry people on my page who are like, how you gonna fall asleep in between contractions? That doesn't even, that's not real. And I'm like,
and I fell asleep.
Well,
I was asleep for a while.
Here we go. It is.
It wasn't even just between contractions. Like I felt like I was still resting while having contractions. And so there was one contraction though, like that was the contraction of all contractions, because I was laying down and my legs said, I said, ah! I said, call Chanel. Call her right now. Call her back. And Mike was like, where's the phone? He called you. And I was like, she's coming. Something's happened. I just felt it was just to open my legs up. And so at that point, I got out of the bed and I'm like wobbling. And I was like, I have to use the bathroom. And so I remember like sitting down on the toilet. And I remember you telling me like, you know, or during your course, you were like, okay, when the baby's about to come, your body's going to try to expel toxins and eliminate waste and things like that. And so I'm like, okay, and you know, it could be by vomiting, diarrhea, like whatever. And so mine was the diarrhea, and I'm just sitting, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is embarrassing.
Nothing is embarrassing in labor. To me,
farting, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And so after I was done using the bathroom, I got up, and then you're like, okay, let's do some high knees. And so I'm doing high knees, and I was.
These are the pictures that I have of you.
And doing high knees and like holding on to his shoulders, doing high knees. And then at this point, it's like maybe like 2 o'clock in the morning, because yeah, it's about like maybe 1:50, 2 o'clock. And then I think like 3 sets of high knees. And like by the last one, I felt her coming. I was like, we need to go. It's time to go. But I remember at one point before I went to the restroom, I was on the ball. And I was like, what are we doing here? What's happening? What are we doing here? And you're like, what do you mean? What do you mean? And I was like, well, maybe I should say it differently. Because I feel like I was being rude.
Yeah,
I know this baby.
You had a lot of things.
That is what I was doing.
Yeah, you gotta. Yeah, I had some of y'all, like sometimes there's this excitement that comes. And Mom's like, I'm ready to go. And I'm like,
yeah.
Let's give it about 5-10 more minutes to see how we feel. Just hold you back just a little bit.
It worked out.
It worked.
And so
it worked.
Again, after the last like set of high knees, got in the car because I'm like, we gotta go, you know. And so we ended up getting in the car, and you asked me like, okay, do you want to sit on your butt or do you want to like hold on to the back of the chair? And I'm like, I'm gonna hold on to the back of the chair because I felt her. She was pretty low at this point, and I'm like, no, I don't want to sit on my baby's head. So I just held on. And so Mike is being a law-abiding citizen and like stopping at all the lights.
A law-abiding citizen.
And then, which was fine because everything was fine until it wasn't fine. And so, like halfway to the hospital, I just had this,
How far was it, by the way?
12, like a
How far
minute, like a
were you
15-minute
from the
drive. With the lights, it's about 15 minutes. And so we don't even have to get on the freeway or anything like that. And so we take the streets to get there. And I remember like halfway there, I had this contraction, and I'm like, I feel like I have to use the bathroom. And you're like, okay, number one, number two. I was like, I feel like I have to poop. I said, I feel a baby in my butt. And you were like, and I said, go, babe, go. And so at that point, he just started going through, like, he'll stop, make sure like nothing's coming, and then he'll just keep going. So by the time we get to the hospital, like he comes out, he goes around to like open my door, and he goes to try to get a wheelchair. And at that point, I was like, the ring of fire.
You were like, I feel her head. I was like, are you sure?
I feel her head. And you were like, are you sure? I said, yes. I feel like her head just came out. And you were like, what's that show? Okay. If you feel like the baby's head is coming out, you need to get out and start walking right now. And I said, okay. And so I'm walking. My shoes are off. I'm walking. I don't have any shoes on the whole time. I'm like, please, let me just get to this room. And so I get in the elevator, and I'm like, okay, Lord, please don't let me have this baby in the elevator and have another contraction. And then when I get out of the elevator, this woman, this mystery woman, this older woman, is just standing there. It's like, do you need help? I said, yes, I need help. I said, I'm having a baby. She's like, oh my gosh, come on, let's go. What's your name? Her name was Susan. And I was like, thank you, Susan. She was like, what's your name? I said, Tyshell, I'm having a baby. And so she takes me to the nursing unit or to the like labor unit. And she's like, this lady is having a baby. And then they were like, oh my gosh, what's your name? And I was like, Tyshell Kirsten. And they were like, okay, well, and they started asking me these other questions. I'm like, I don't know.
Oh, right.
And they was like, okay, come on. We have a room ready for you. But keep in mind, this is all the Lord, because we had gone to that hospital so many times. Like I said, I had just pain. And throughout the whole pregnancy, they put us in like this closet-sized room that felt like it was like an old janitor's closet that they converted into a room. Like they could barely, like they had to turn the bed just to examine me. That's how small it was. And so, but one time during prayer at church, I was deep in prayer and deep in worship. And the Lord told me, like, I have a place prepared for you. Like I have a place prepared for you. And when we got there, it literally looked like the whole nursing staff was waiting for us. Like that's what it looked like. Like everybody behind there were just like chilling, waiting for me to get there. And they're like, oh, come on, we have a room ready for you. And I'm like, what? It was a big, beautiful room. It was something completely different from those closets they had been putting us in. And that's what I was worried about. It's like, okay, Lord, this place is always busy.
Thank
like,
the Lord.
They're going to even be able to receive us. And they received us. And so I get into the room, and then the lady, Susan, just completely disappeared. I don't know. Nobody said, like, I was like, where'd the lady go? They were like, oh, we didn't see anyone. And then I was like, babe, did you see an old lady? And he was like, no, I didn't see nobody, especially when he was like coming up. And so I think it was an angel. Thank you, Susan.
Susan.
Yes, so,
Susan the angel.
She might be on here like, no, baby.
I was like,
yes,
if Susan is here, we are grateful for you, girl.
So, by that time, I get in the room, and I'm like trying to take my own pants off. The lady was like, no, relax, I got it. So I'm like, okay. So I'm like laying there, I'm having another contraction. I think at this point, you had came into the room, right? I think, I was only there. I wasn't there that long. Yeah, I wasn't there for that long.
You were there for 7 minutes.
When he came into the room, he was on with you. And I remember you just saying, okay, breathe, Tasha, breathe, practice your breathing. Like, remember, this is where everything that you learn is time to put into practice. Like, this is like everything you've been practicing is time to like put it to work right now. And so I'm trying to do my J breaths and all those things. And I'm mooing and stuff and just trying to get myself together. and you told Mike, like, tell them to put her in a better position, because I'm on my back, and I specifically said in my birth plan that I did not want to give birth on my back, and that it's either hands and knees or on my side. And so he asked, like, oh, what do you want to do? And I was like, I'll try hands and knees. I don't know who I was fooling. I didn't know.
You weren't moving that far.
I'm like, okay.
You don't want to.
So I was only able to get to my side. And then, but before that, I'm sorry, this is important because this part cracked me up. So I get up there and they're like, oh, how many centimeters are you? I was like, her head is right there.
That's what I was wondering, if you were going to share this part of the story.
This part, it really cracked me up, like, in hindsight. But in the moment, I was like, come on, friends. So they were saying, like, they kept asking, the nurses kept asking, like, you know, how many centimeters are you? I said, her head's right there. I felt her head. They're like, okay, no, but how many centimeters are you? I said, her head is right there. Well, can we check? Yes, you can check, but I'm telling you, her head's right there. And so the nurse checks, and she goes to the other nurse, oh, we see the baby's hair. I said, I told you her head is right there.
Literally, I remember being on the phone being like, y'all, she just told you that. They're like, oh, baby's +3. And I'm like, you just told me that. Y'all thought we were lying? Okay.
And so, yes, after that, I get into the position, and then I had like one contraction. They're saying, okay, you know, the baby, you know, the hair is right there, we can see, and so we're gonna need you to push, and, you know, we're gonna need you to push in just a little while. And then I just have a contraction, and I'm like, at this point, I'm like, ah! And you're like, that show. He said, calm down and just, like, breathe. Remember, don't do that.
You just had, I don't know if I told you, Mike, to breathe with her. I don't remember
there
what
was a lot
said,
happening, but it was definitely I think you were telling me to, like, do my my move breaths, and I was not trying to move. I just was. I was like, okay, and then I was like,
okay. I wasn't. That's exactly how it sounded, with the little breaks in between.
And so, but that move breath, like, ended up, like, pushing, like, his head out, and then I had one more contraction that, like, pushed her body out. And so, like, that right there that's a testimony in itself, because my doctor told me that my body wasn't because of my fibroids, my uterus wasn't going to be strong enough to push my baby out, and that I would probably have to get a C-section. And not only did my body expel my baby, but I didn't even have to push. And so, come on, Jesus. Yes, Lord. And so, yeah. And some people are like, oh, fibroids, like, you know, I have a little one here, a little one there. Like, no, my biggest fibroid is the size of a grapefruit. And I have 3 of them. One is the size of an orange, another one is the size of, like, a small lime. And so, like, I don't have little fibroids. They're not small at all. But the Lord, God is able. And so, yeah, Micah came out. I got in that room at 2:12. She was born by 2:19. I was there, so everything happened so quickly that they didn't even have time enough to hook me up to an IV for the antibiotics, which I'm so grateful for, actually, because I later found out that I was actually allergic to the medication or the antibiotics that they were going to give me. I ended up having to get a tooth pulled in November and had an allergic reaction to that same medication. And so if I would have received that intravenously, like, Lord, like, we don't know. And so God knows. And so, yeah, that is how Micah came out. Yes. Unmedicated. All that stuff.
And so in your, and Mike, I want to hear, like, any parts that you have to add from your perspective, because I know you talked about advocacy, but in your, like, written birth story, you talked about pain-free. You said, you know, I didn't believe that I could have a pain-free birth. And I want you to speak to that from your experience, because of course not everybody has a pain-free birth. But what do you believe helped you have
it's
the
what I said earlier.
birth?
Like, just reminding myself, like, pain is nailed to the cross. Like, because we weren't, like, women, we weren't meant, like, childbirth was not meant to be painful, but it was the fall that made birth painful. You know what I'm saying? And so if that was something that was not a thing from the beginning, like, that means that it's possible for the Lord to do that again. And so for me, I had to remind myself, okay, pain is nailed to the cross. Like, and I think that's a common misconception, because, like, pain doesn't mean that it's not intense. Pain doesn't mean that it's not hard. Pain doesn't mean that it's not exhausting. Pain doesn't mean that that you don't feel it. But like the pain, it wasn't painful, if that makes sense. It was just tough in different times.
Yeah. Intensity and pain are two completely different things. Like, I'll never tell somebody that birth is not intense, because it is. And it's a good sign that, like, the more intense it gets, the closer you are most likely to meeting your baby. But yeah, pain-free birth does exist. And so, Mike, from your perspective, like, going through all of this, supporting her through all of this, like, what pieces of the story do you want to add, or things that, you know, I don't know, helped you support her through this honestly very quick, fast, you know, journey? Because you talked about, you got home around, you left around 8, you got home around 8 p.m. and you had your baby by like 2 something, 2:19. Like, that's very, very fast. I mean, yes, you were like in labor throughout the whole day, but you were still doing normal things that you would have done with or without being in labor, probably. So that's fast. It's a very fast first labor. So Mike, tell us your side, or just like, what can you add to the story from the partner's lens?
I expected the labor to be a lot longer. I've always heard about, 19 hours, 24 hours. I was expecting us to be in labor all night long into the wee hours of the morning, even into the next day. And so with everything that happened, like I said, in hindsight, looking at the fact that I don't think I spoke to anyone else that's had a kid and so they went to the movies, and did the things that we did, and were just so lax the whole day. And that's a testament to your program, you know what I'm saying, and just how, and look, whenever we walk up and down the street, we be seeing like people that are pregnant. I instantly think about you. I'm like, look, they need to, you know what I'm saying? And we've done that, advocate for you.
We were in LA. We were like, listen.
Yeah.
We know someone.
We know someone.
She's virtual.
Yeah.
This is her IG handle. Okay.
Absolutely. And so, like, for me, like I said, you guys, you and your husband laid out a plan that helped me a lot. And so I was able to kind of just stay in tune with what needs to happen next. Again, I wouldn't have known that if, we didn't have you. And so the blessing is right there. And then I think there was a moment where I was, I think it was a moment where there was a little frustration. What was that about?
Because he was trying to count for me. And I didn't want him to. Yes.
Yeah.
He was breathing.
The breathing
fast.
count.
He was counting too fast, and it was just. And there were times where he would try to like. It was because I didn't know what I needed in different moments, and so sometimes I wanted him there, and other times it was so intense. I was like, okay, just don't touch, and he didn't know what to do, and so it's like, okay, do I help?
Yeah.
Do I not help? Do I help? Do I not help? And so I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
Yes, and so for us guys, just remaining flexible, and not taking any of this personal. And then, I think that at that point you were on the phone with this, and so you're able to kind of step in like, I got this, Mike. I was like, all right, cool. Let me fall back. Yeah, let me fall
I'll
back.
take over for the counting.
But yeah. I think for me, when we got to the hospital and she went out and was walking, and I'm trying to like get the car situated, I'm on the phone with you, and so we're trying to, you're like, hurry up, get in there, hurry up. And when I got in there, they had me at the desk filling out paper, and you're like, Mike, you need to get in there. And I'm like, all right. And so when I got in there, like, I don't know how many people was in there helping you out.
There were a lot.
It was,
like
I don't
15,
know, like, it was a lot of people in there.
There was a handful.
30 people. It wasn't that many, but it felt like it.
Yeah, it felt like it.
Yeah, it definitely was at least like 5
7.
to 7 people.
Yeah, for sure. I'll take 7. And but like I said, you were right there on the call with us. You know what I'm saying? You were able to keep us both calm. and because I knew you were in my ear, I knew that I could remain calm, that you had already seen all of this before. And so I just needed to be attentive to what you were saying, as well as attentive to my wife, her body, her responses, the doctors and what they're saying. And so it for me, like I wasn't like antsy, or I didn't have any anxiety for the most part. I was actually really calm. I think I just was still like, all right, God, like here we go, you know. And but it was a huge help having you, and I want to keep saying that, you know, because yeah, like Maury said, this may not have been, it may not went as smooth without you. You know what I'm saying? We made a lot of other decisions that may have been costly, you know, without your guidance. I'm sure labor would have looked totally different, you know, without your program. And I probably would have a lot more grays after that situation without your guidance and your husband. And so I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and he's right. He can hear you too. But we're grateful.
The birth plan. You gave the people the birth plan.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I was able to, they didn't follow to the T, but I gave it to them.
Yeah. But you did, you know, the thing is, when I go back and I watch like the video, and I don't like, I think it was testament to what you said earlier. It's like, I didn't even push it. I don't know if this is like what you were experiencing, Tyshell, but like a lot of the moms that have shared their stories lately have talked about how in the zone they were, that they were not even aware of like what was going on around them because they were so deep in their zone, their birth zone. When I like watch your birth video, you pushed and like you almost look surprised that they were handing you the baby, like, oh yeah, she's here.
Yeah.
We did it. And because you were just like, just mooing this baby out. I'm just gonna move it. And then like, you're like, oh, the baby. Oh my gosh, she's here. So like, I just want to just echo, and like from the outside looking in, like you were so calm. Like sometimes you just need that reassurance of like, you're fine, we're okay. And one thing to also note for anybody who does like try to stay at home as long as possible, you can almost always, I'd say like 95% of the time, if you're birthing in the hospital and you do what Tyshell and Mike just did, you can expect there to be some level of chaos when you get there, because most staff are not expecting you to come in with your baby's head on the way out. Like they think they have some time, administer the IV, like all the things that you had said, and you were GBS positive. And so that can even cause them to freak out even more, because they're like, we gotta do this, we gotta do that. Okay, and how many? It's like, no, this isn't helping, ma'am.
Right.
Where's Susan? Bring Susan back, because we need Susan's energy. Okay. Right now you got different kind of energy. So it is important for both of you to be on the same page, because when that chaos does happen, you don't want that to be what you receive and what you take on and what you start to embody, because that can completely shift the whole like moment. If you're like right in transition and then you get all this anxiety and fear and chaos, that can like stall you for a little bit and slow things down. So it is important to know and to be prepared to be able to navigate that together, just like they did so well. So we had the baby, and now you've talked about the first year of life. What advice would you give to a couple who is trying to prepare to have a natural birth or to have a supernatural birth? Because that is hands down like to me, that's the goal. That for the clients that I work with, we are working towards a supernatural birth. We are working towards a positive birth. So what advice would you give somebody who's hoping to have that
like
kind of
just any
experience?
old person or someone who is working with you? Because
whatever, however you want to respond, either or.
I would say get you a Chanel.
Yeah. Give you this version of Chanel. Not on anybody.
Right. But no, like seriously though, like I would say definitely stay rooted in Christ. Stay at the foot of the cross. That is definitely like that's above all. Like it's like that is that is the advice I have. And to also make sure that you are educated about what your options are. Like one of the main things that I took from your work your birth course was just like the education behind it, and how I was able to really advocate for myself at my appointments, and how, you know, because at the time, so there were times when my husband couldn't go because they still have the COVID rules and stuff like that. And so there was a lot of times where I was by myself, and I had to like advocate, especially like when they just kept trying to offer me different vaccines during pregnancy that I was not wanting. Um, and just, yeah, like being educated, it empowers you to make the decisions that you want, and to have the birth that you desire. And no, it's not going to always work out the way that you plan it. Like that's unrealistic, for it to always 99 100%, you know, be that way. But you have a better chance, you know, when you're able to you know, be educated. And I know even just some people that I know, even since then, you know, I try to share with them, you know, the things that I've learned with you, and not to the point where I'm like giving away your curriculum or anything like that, but like just giving tips, you know, like the things that I've learned, you know, like make sure you don't, you know, just do whatever the doctor says, like do your research, you know. And so, because that goes a long way. But first and foremost, and most of all, stay at the foot of the cross. Because a supernatural birth is possible. I also would say, I know, actually, even though we didn't actually use these, I know that there was a portion of time that I took out to really just go into scripture and write declarations, and write scripture in declaration form, to declare it over myself, over my baby, over my husband, over the hospital staff, you know, like, and just constant prayer, just constant prayer. And the Lord, he's able, and he will provide a way for you, you know. He did it for us, and like I said, I heard it so clearly, like, I have a place for you. And like, just knowing just our experience at the hospital with the little rooms, and like just everything, like looking back on my experience, I can see just the Lord's fingerprints all over it, everywhere, up until this day. Everywhere, from conception all the way up to now. Like he is, stay at the foot of the cross.
I love it. I love it. Anything else you want to add before we give you back to your baby girl?
Nothing else. I mean, if I stay on any longer, I'll just keep telling people how they need to work with you. Love you too.
Y'all are sweet. I love y'all so much. I'm so grateful for you. I miss y'all too. We will be connecting. I'll be sharing some other things with you guys offline, but all of this is going to be saved, y'all, and I hope that this is encouraging for you. I do want to like continue to share these stories, because I think sometimes you just have to hear it from the source, right? Hear it from the source and see how they connected to the source to see this happen. And I think sometimes when you get on social media, you can like hear these people talking about these things, and it feels just so like hypothetical. It feels very like, oh, this is like the textbook, or this is how, you know, this is how people who have a perfect birth talk about it. But like, that's not it. Nothing about any of these births are perfect, right? Things change, things go different than what their plans are. And I do think that even if your plan changes, like having this inspiration, having this story to refer to repeat, to listen to, will just help you see what happens when you are connected to God, when you do seek him and seek his guidance for your journey, for your experience. And like, this wasn't, as y'all could tell, this wasn't just the birth. Like, we've been practicing this in the pregnancy. Like, y'all were doing this and practicing, like seeking guidance from the time that you conceived this baby. So it's not just something that you pull out. None of these things, like nothing that you take away from me or anybody else on this platform should just be pulled out in labor. You have to practice this in your pregnancy so that it comes natural in labor, just like it did for the two of them. And it's important. Yes, holding ice.
Hold that ice.
Listen, and Y'all be thinking I'm playing. I'm just telling you, I'm not here to waste anybody's time. I want this to be as quick as possible for all of you. So, but you know, when you can get in that state of mind and you can just be so focused and zoned in, like it's easier. It's just easier. So anyways, thank y'all so much for your time. Thank you so much for sharing your story with the world. Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of that story with you. I'm super grateful for y'all. We miss y'all on Bible study, so we're gonna have to get ourselves back together with these time change in the time zones, because it'd be like 11 o'clock at night and I'll be like, I do want to be in the Word, and I want to be on my pillow right now. So we're in the Word, and that's where we were for a while. We were in the bed and in the Word. But we miss y'all, and so we'll connect. We will connect. And then for those of you who are still pregnant, if you need that level of support, please reach out. There's plenty of ways that I can support you. And if you're a new mom and you want to be supported, there is a new way for you to be in community with people like Tyshell, myself, other moms that have shared their story, because the journey of this connection and the journey of motherhood and being connected with the Lord does not end at your birth. Like, you need him probably even more as a mother and a father, because these kids, they are working to sanctify you. Okay. And so, but you need a community. You need a sisterhood to do that too. And that is something that is going to be starting very soon. So if that's something that you want to be a part of and you're not pregnant, you are already a mom, and you want that sisterhood, please check out all of the information on my page on how to get connected and how to join us all in community. So love y'all dearly. Thank you for your time. Happy Sunday. And have a good rest of your evening. This will be saved for y'all to rewatch.
Bye.
Bye.